Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fourth ENRICH in China webinar entitled EU-China R&I Collaboration, the Chinese Perspective. My name is Dimitris Philippidis. I represent Foundation for Research and Technology, ELAS, which is a partner of ENRICH in China. And I have the honor to be the moderator for this session. Today, we are glad to say that we have over 100 registered participants for this webinar, 87 coming from 22 EU member states. So good morning to you. And 13 registered participants from China. Good afternoon to you as well. This is the fourth webinar in a series that we are organizing as ENRICH in China. The previous three covered issues that had to do with the introduction to the Chinese research and innovation landscape. A second webinar had to do with how to manage IPR in China. And the third webinar dealt with the EU-China research and innovation collaboration from the European perspective. So this webinar will focus on this bi-regional collaboration from the Chinese perspective. And in this context, we will have two presentations. The one will be an introduction on ENRICH in China, what we are, what we do, what we offer, and what is planned in the next months, so that you get an idea of what is being organized and what is being implemented. This presentation will be given by Sara Medina, Dr. Sara Medina, who is a member of the board in SPI, and Andre Barbosa, a senior consultant at SPI, who are the coordinators of the ENRICH in China initiative. The second presentation will give an overview of the Chinese research and innovation funding landscape. What are the main characteristics, opportunities and challenges, as well as specific recommendations for EU stakeholders. This presentation will be given by Mr. Alessio Petino from Development Solutions. He's a project manager there and has a long experience in monitoring the development and implementation of Chinese R&I funding programs. After the end of these two presentations, we will have approximately 15 minutes for Q&A. So please feel free to type your questions at the specific box you have in the web application. Type your questions and also please type to who you address them to, so that we are able to answer them more easily. This is all from my side. I will just, without further delay, I would like to give the floor to my dear colleagues, Sara Medina and Andre Barbosa, so that they make an introduction of what ENRICH in China is all about. Sara, Andre, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for the ones that are listening to us in China. First of all, thank you very much for joining us. And I'd like also to thank very much Dimitris for having agreed to be the moderator, and also Alessio that has agreed to participate as a speaker in this webinar. So as Dimitris mentioned, we are coordinating this initiative together with a group of European and Chinese partners, and Andre and myself will give you an introduction of what is ENRICH in China. So basically, there was a call for applications under the Horizon 2020 program for the establishment of pilot centers in 3 different regions: USA, Brazil, and China. So our consortium decided to apply for the China one, and we got awarded, and this is basically a project funded by the European Commission, but it's a different type of project that aims at the establishment of a physical center that can support different types of European organizations on all the research and innovation aspects in China. So basically, these are the three centers, and the three centers have a common name. It's called ENRICH. So we have ENRICH in USA, ENRICH in Brazil, and ENRICH in China. SPI, we are also a partner in the ENRICH in USA and ENRICH in Brazil. So further on, if you need any information about these two other centers, you can also contact us. So basically, this is an initiative to help different types of European organizations, from startups to SMEs, also researchers, on all the internationalization aspects to China, but focus on research and innovation. There is already a center that's called the EU SME Center that supports Europeans on all the trade aspects related to China. So basically, our differentiation is to focus on research and innovation aspects, and also science and technology. Just to present you very briefly who are the implementing partners of this initiative. So we have a group of very highly qualified European organizations, including Fraunhofer IPK, based in Germany, Steinbeis Foundation, also from Germany, Praxi Help Forward, represented here by Dimitris from Greece, the National Funding Agency from Austria, FFG, EU Relations from Switzerland, the Network of Business Incubators based in Brussels, EBN, and Innovation Norway, that's an organization from Norway that already has physical centers in both Beijing and Shanghai. From the China side, we also have a very high number of qualified organizations from both government, university, and also research side. Tsinghua University, everyone knows it's one of the most well-known universities and the top university in China on science, technology, and innovation. Two governmental organizations, the China High-Tech Industry, the Torch High-Tech Industry Development Group, that's part of the Ministry of Science and Technology in China, that is running all the business incubators and the science parks in China, and also the China Science and Technology Exchange Center, that is basically the national contact point for Horizon 2020 in China. Then we have the University of Nottingham and the European Union Project Innovation Center that is based in Chengdu in Sichuan province, and that's also started as being a project funded by the European Commission under the Asia Invest program. So how ENRICH will work in China? We are going to be able to connect and support different types of European science, technology, and innovation organizations in China by providing a set of services, reinforce the leadership of European STI in China, and also to promote the cooperation on STI between Europe and China. So the center has been already officially launched in 3 locations. First, it was in Beijing last year in the end of October. We had a mission. We took about 45 organizations from Europe that went to Beijing, to Chengdu, and to Qingdao to participate in the EU-China Business and Technology Cooperation Fair in the Chengdu and Qingdao, and also in a launch ceremonies that took place in these three different cities, together with the launch of the new Horizon 2020 program of cooperation between EU and China. So basically, the headquarters of the ENRICH in China Center are located in Beijing, in the facilities of the EU SME Center that is located in Sanlitun area, very close to the embassies. We have also already a regional hub in Chengdu, because we want to also tackle other locations in China apart from the first tier cities. And Chengdu is a city that is developing very quick. and it is also an opening door for the western part of China. Here there is a new infrastructure that's called the Business and Innovation Center for China-Europe Cooperation. It's a very impressive building that has the latest architecture done by European architects, also opera house, hotel, so it's very, very impressive. And the ENRICH in China regional hub is located in these facilities. Last week, we were very pleased to have the launch of our Alliance office here in Europe. It's based in Brussels and is hosted by the European Business and Innovation Center Network, a network of business incubators that is located in Brussels and has a series of members. EBN is also involved in the two other initiatives, the ENRICH in USA and ENRICH in Brazil. Who are the clients of the center? So basically, we want to tackle different types of organizations from the research side, the innovation side, and the business side. From the research side, we tackle universities, research centers, research councils. Then from the innovation side, all types of innovation agencies, funding agencies, and also science, technology, innovation networks and platforms. Because in the future, they might also think, some countries, that they might use ENRICH in China for all the support that they may need in China. And of course, also the business actors, from the SMEs to startups, all clusters organizations, business associations and chambers, and also large companies. Because the aim of the center is to defend the interests of the 28 EU member states and also associated countries. Basically, there are countries in China, like countries in Europe, like Germany, France, Italy, that they already have their own infrastructures in China, and probably they don't need as much support from ENRICH in China as other countries like my own country, Portugal, also Hungary, Lithuania, the less developed countries. But the aim of the center is to defend the interests of all the countries, all European countries. Now, to give you an overview of what types of services we are already offering. So basically, we took quite some time to try to understand what were the needs of different organizations. We organized bilateral meetings with organizations that already have a physical presence in China, with basically different types of stakeholders. We had workshops and seminars in Europe, also in different locations in China, and we also conducted a survey to understand the real needs and what ENRICH in China can still provide as added value and complementary to the offer that is already being made. So to give you an idea of the services, we have all the area of customized services, including the research, development and innovation, consultancy and coaching. So basically here we provide customized and specialized orientation and technical assistance to support clients in their specific science and technology innovation needs and priorities related to China. Imagine you have a specific technology and you want to license this technology in China. So you can come to us and then we can help you finding the best partners all over China to license your technology. Another example, you have some research that you are doing on nanotechnology. You want to know who and where you can find the best researchers, the best universities in China on that specific nanotechnology field. So through ENRICH in China and through all the partners that we have, we also count with a group of associated partners, both from Europe and China. We can help you to identify who are the best organizations that you can liaise with. Another type of service, research, development, and innovation intelligence. Here, we can do all types of innovation assessments, feasibility studies, technological vigilance, foresight analysis regarding the Chinese science and technology innovation landscape. You can, for instance, have a new idea and you want to see how I can put this in practice in China. So we can basically help you to do this feasibility study and see if your product is already ready to be implemented in the China market. You can also meet, for instance, a certain partner in a fair, and you want to know more about that partner. So we can also do the due diligence of that specific partner. You also may have access to different types of data from China, and we all know that data sometimes is not very accurate. So we can help you filter that information and then provide you the best data, the best information, making a mapping of different sources of data. Another type of service that we are already offering, we had a call for applications for soft landing and co-working. The call is now closed, and we are basically selecting European organizations based in China and Chinese organizations based in China that can provide you a space if you want, for instance, to go to China for a period of 1 month or 3 months or 6 months. So we can help you to really choose the best location in China. And the best location can be in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, but can also be in the second and third tier cities like Tianjin, Nanjing, Hangzhou. So depending on your specific sector, your specific needs, we can locate, and these organizations are going to be certified by us through this innovation support certification program. So these are organizations that will have the label of ENRICH in China and that are certified and qualified to receive you and to provide you also the best services that you need. Fostering open innovation through training. So basically we conduct different types of workshops and seminars and also webinars like this one. We had last week our first workshop in Brussels, where we had about more than 25 participants on how you can enrich your business and innovation potential in China. So you can keep updated about our different types of webinars, short courses, workshops, and we have also 2 upcoming ones in June in Stuttgart and also in Zurich. Cooperation enable events. So basically here we organize different types of missions to China. We'll be also in the future organizing from China to Europe, because after the end of the 4 years, the grant that we have from the European Commission of 3 million euros, the center has to become self-sustainable. So basically we are already now building the path for the center to become self-sustainable after the 4 years grant is finished. So these events, they allow for different types of European organizations to go to China and then to have a series of participation in conferences, in workshops that we organize, and B2B and matchmaking. And we are organizing a specific one now in the beginning of May to Shanghai, Wuxi, and Chengdu. Research, development, and innovation briefings. So basically here we keep an update on the latest trends, latest drivers, and latest opportunities in the Chinese science and technology innovation system. So you can basically keep updated receiving our newsletter, also being part of our LinkedIn group, also WeChat groups, and also consulting our website. Now to finalize my part, so these are some pictures of the launch ceremonies that took place in Beijing and Chengdu last year in the end of October. We also have a very good press coverage, and we are very pleased now to support you in all your needs in China. Thank you very much from my part. I'll pass now the floor to my colleague, André Barbosa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sara. Just to finalize with a few words on the past and upcoming activities that ENRICH in China has promoted and is going to promote in the short term. Starting with some previous services that we have already provided. At the end of 2017, we supported some technology-based companies coming from Lithuania through the Agency for Science, Innovation and Technology from the country, MITA. We supported those companies and the agency in getting bilateral business meetings with their Chinese counterparts, and also to get some training sessions with key local players such as the USME Center and the IPR Help Desk. ENRICH in China also helped them to organize business visits, and all of these activities were aiming to give these Lithuanian organizations a better overview of the Chinese business and innovation landscape. As already mentioned by Sara and by Dimitris, we have a set of webinars which are run on a continuous basis, usually every month. This is the 4th edition. We had already 3 past editions of webinars on introduction to China's innovation landscape, IPR issues, and the European perspective on EU-China research and innovation collaboration. I'd like to take this opportunity also to mention to you that we are absolutely open for organizing customized webinars based on topics and ideas that you suggest. So please feel free to contact us in case you have a specific demand or a specific topic you'd like to see addressed in a webinar. Within the cooperation enabling events, we organized in January this year in Beijing a business and innovation networking breakfast event, gathering representatives from the European Commission placed in China, science and technology counselors from EU member states, and some Chinese innovation leading organizations. The idea of this networking breakfast is to put these key players in contact to discuss specific topics. In this concrete case, the topic discussed was incubation and acceleration opportunities for European startups in China. So it's an event that on one side presents some additional information on the Chinese business and innovation market, but on the other side also proportion these opportunity for networking among stakeholders. As already mentioned as well, last week we had a couple of activities running in Brussels. The launch of the European office at the European Business Network facilities. This event gathered more than 80 people, mainly from the European side. And we can now claim to have a physical space for our activities, meetings, and other initiatives in Europe. Also, last week, and the same day of this inauguration event, on April the 18th, we organized a roundtable workshop among the 3 centers from Brazil, China, and the USA, gathering more than 30 participants, aiming to discuss their needs of support and what were the most suitable services that ENRICH could provide to them. And finally, on April the 19th, we organized a specific workshop under ENRICH in China umbrella entitled Enrich Your Innovation and Business Potential in China. Gathering 4 speakers, the workshop focused on providing further and detailed information about the competitiveness and innovation landscape in China and how the participant organizations could tackle the challenges and the potentialities of this landscape. Just a few information on some upcoming activities of ENRICH in China. From May the 6th to May 11th, ENRICH in China is organizing an innovation tour to China focused on the sector of Industry 4.0 and on the initiative Made in China 2025. This innovation tour will pass through 3 cities, Shanghai, Wuxi, and Chengdu, and there will be a set of activities ranging from networking and bilateral meetings, enabling face-to-face and direct contacts from European organizations towards their Chinese counterparts. Other activities will refer to business visits, also to key players and stakeholders in these 3 cities, and also some information sessions on upcoming activities and opportunities related to Industry 4.0 in these 3 cities. And I would like to highlight specifically the Europe Day that is going to be organized in Chengdu, also to celebrate Europe's Day that is taking place in that week. The tour is just around the corner, but if you're still interested in joining it, please do contact us and subscribe and register. We still have places open. Also to highlight, from May 21st to May 22nd in Wuhan, the EU-China Cleantech Scale-Up Delegation. This is an event organized by Tech Tour with support of ENRICH. It's sector focused on clean tech, and it also proportion on one side networking activities, so face-to-face interactions, business visits, and also some information sessions on opportunities in the clean tech sector in China. Again, if you are interested to attend, there are still places available. Please do contact us in case you are interested in this event. To finalize, as already mentioned by Sara, on June the 12th and 13th in Stuttgart, Germany, we are holding the next ENRICH in China workshop entitled Proposal Preparation Linking the EU and China Successfully in Horizon 2020 RTD Projects. So essentially, this is a workshop which intends to enhance your skills and capabilities of writing Horizon 2020 proposals focused on EU and China cooperation. Specific information will be provided as well on the co-funding mechanism from the Chinese side, which is of course a key successful factor for enabling successful Horizon 2020 proposals involving Chinese organizations. This workshop will be organized by one of ENRICH in China partners, Steinbeins, and of course we would like to appeal and to invite you to attend this workshop, which we think may be very useful for your activities in China. Also taking place on June the 12th in Zurich, organized by another ENRICH in China partner, EU Relations, another workshop called the Strategy Towards China, Chinese Innovation Landscape and Funding Opportunities. So the essential goal of this workshop is to guide the participant organizations on the concrete next steps that they need to take, that they need to undertake in order to have a successful steering and sustainable presence in the Chinese market, taking advantage of the business and innovation opportunities and also funding opportunities on research and innovation that the Chinese market offers. All these events and missions to China that I just referred are paid, so there is a registration fee involved. The conditions are available and further information are available in our website, so do visit our website for further information on these events and contact us in case you need further information. Don't forget, also when consulting our website to get acquainted with other upcoming initiatives that we have taking place under the umbrella of ENRICH China, not only in the short term, so not only until June this year, but also in upcoming months and after the European summer as well. In case you have doubts, in case you have other issues that you'd like to raise and address us, of course, we are available to reply to the questions you put during the webinar, but we are also available through our offices in Beijing, Chengdu, and recently in Brussels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you, Andre, for this detailed presentation of what ENRICH China is and what we do and what is foreseen in the next few months. Again, dear participants, any questions you have, please write them down at the specific box provided in the application, and we will be able to answer these after the end of both presentations. Now, without further delay, we'll move forward to the next presentation, which is the overview of the Chinese R&I funding landscape. I invite Mr. Alessio Petino from Development Solutions Europe Ltd to give this presentation. Alessio, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks to Dimitris for the introduction. Also thanks to ENRICH colleagues for organizing this seminar today, which I think it's important to have discussion on this topic because, as I will introduce in a moment, Chinese funding system for research and innovation offers concrete opportunities to European actors, but because of a series of reasons, there is often very low awareness of these opportunities among them. So it is very important to have these discussions, and I hope that more will follow in the future. In terms of my presentation, trying to switch slide. Okay, it will be mainly divided into 5 parts. I will first begin with a very brief introduction of what is the background of this presentation. Then I will provide a very general overview of the Chinese funding programs for research and innovation, and then focusing on 2 specific programs where there is large evidence of international participations, and in the case of the Natural Science Foundation of China, or in another case in which I believe there is strong potential despite instances of international participation are still very low, and this is the case of national key programs for research and development. Then I will conclude by outlining some lessons and recommendations for European stakeholders. So, try to have some difficulties in switching slide, but trying to, maybe Dimitris, can you help me switching slide? I cannot switch it for some reason.
Because it has just switched, so. Is that okay?
Trying to, I cannot switch it. I don't think so. I cannot switch them on my laptop. Maybe maybe if you can do it for me.
Now we are in slide number 4, introduction. You want us to move further back?
But I see number 2 on my. I see number 2 on my laptop. Well, maybe you can switch them for me. I will just tell you when to switch slides. So maybe if you can go to slide number 4.
We are at slide number 4. I will ask my colleagues at SPI to.
So this is the introduction. The reason I'm starting with this slide is because the content of my number 4 is now. So just to give an overview of this presentation, the reason I'm starting with this is because all this presentation is mostly the result of an 18-month study that was initiated by the European Commission in July 2016, called Advanced EU Access to Financial Incentives for Innovation in China. The objective of this action was to monitor the development of Chinese national funding programs for research and innovation in order to assess the degree of reciprocity that is afforded to EU actors within these programs. This is done through level of analysis, the first policies and regulations, and also the legal frameworks of these programs, so to understand how these programs work and to identify possible areas where EU actors can play a positive and active role. Then we also monitor all the entire tender cycles of tenders and all the programs under this system, and we also had some informal consultations with wide variety of stakeholders, both from academia and industry. It is very important to mention that one of the outcomes of this project was the formulation of a guide for specifically directed to EU stakeholders on these Chinese national funding programs. The guide is available on the European Union delegations to China website, and it's of course free. So maybe if someone can switch slide. Chinese going to overview of the Chinese funding programs for research and innovation. I tend to divide them into three main categories. The first one being national level programs. We are mainly talking about 5 main types of programs which feature a unified management structure. These programs underwent a very important reform, which I will introduce in a second. Then we have and my presentation will be almost entirely based on these national level projects. Of course, we also have projects at the local level, at all the administrative level. So starting from provincial level, for instance, Jiangsu province, but also going down to districts. For instance, Minhang district in Shanghai has several of these funding programs available. And also in some cases, national high-tech zones or innovation demonstration zones, especially larger ones, may also have some funding available, like Zhangjiang or Zhongguancun, but also Wuhan or Xi'an. I will not address these local level projects in this presentation because they're very different, but I will still try to highlight some of the main characteristics, especially in comparison to national level ones. And then there is another category of projects which can still be considered national level, but they do not fall within the scope of the unified management structure that was reformed by the central government recently. And this mainly include the 1,000 talents plan and the 10,000 talents plan, which are organized by the organizational department of the Party Central Committee, as well as the 100 talents plan of the Academy of Sciences. My presentation then focuses mainly on math sciences, not social sciences, where opportunities are generally fewer because funding is much, there is less funding on this, but still opportunities exist from Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Ministry of Education, also Chinese Scholarship Council. So if you can change slide, please. I will not focus too much on this, but just to introduce this major reform outlined by initiated by the State Council in December 2014. They established a unified management structure on the top of it, of which there is an interministerial joint council, which is formed by 31 government agencies led by the Ministry of Science and Technology. This is to ensure the overall coordination of the funding programs. Then there is an advisory committee formed by experts from industry, technology, and also financial fields. They're responsible for giving advices and suggestions to the council. Then there are professional management agencies, which, as we will see in a second, They are very central in this system because they are responsible for the daily management and operations of all funding programs on behalf of the Joint Council. So they basically organize and collect all applications, organize evaluations, and the funding allocation. And a total of 7 agencies exist at the moment. Then there is also an evaluation, inspection, and dynamic adjustment, which is activated in case changes need to be adopted in due course in order to ensure some projects, the delivery of some projects which have experienced some unexpected circumstances. And under this mechanism, there is also a credit rating system. So means that participants, applicants which have some negative records during these programs will lose some credit, and with repercussion on the future. So next slide, please. This reform basically created 5 main funding programs, which incorporated over 100 programs that were previously existing, like the 863 plan for R&I or the 973 program. We have the first one is the National Natural Science Fund, which supports basic and applied research in natural sciences, and this is administered by the Natural Science Foundation of China. Then we have what we call mega projects, which are 16 major programs launched in 2006, and these represent the largest and most ambitious R&D task for China's long-term development. And these address major key products, technologies, and tasks of strategic importance for the country's economy and competitiveness. For instance, much of the research that led to the development of the C919 aircraft or 5G or moon exploration was carried under this project. I will not focus on this because they're very complicated, but I just want to mention that these are going to be replaced by a new category of what we call 2030 innovation mega projects, which will run until 2030. And this will include big data, artificial intelligence, aircraft engines, and brain sciences, and so on. These programs are not considered to be very open to international actors, although during some of our consultations, someone say that there actually are European actors participating in consortiums under this project. But in any case, if this project some projects encourage international cooperation, specifically the for major new drugs or 5G and water pollution treatment. Especially this last one encourages German actors. So next slide, please. Just very briefly, this scheme just illustrates the overall relationship of among all the stakeholders involved into this program, into this system. Of course, there are differences depending on specific funding program, but this is just to show how does the process works and who is involved at what stage, so that we see that the main center of this, the main point connecting the government structure on the top formed by the line agency and the interministerial joint council are the project management professional agencies. And any participants, PIs, consortiums leader, they need to apply to these professional management agencies. And this also in case some project proposals feature local government support, fundings, extra funding, they will be included into that proposal. Maybe now I can change slide. Still not, so maybe if you can change slide again. Going specifically into the Natural Science Fund. This is administered by the National Natural Science Foundation of China, which now, after the institutional reform of the State Council of this March, now it's completely under the Ministry of Science and Technology. And this is considered to be the most open, fair, and transparent program. Application guidelines to this program are published every year in December on the Natural Science Foundation's website. And these guidelines specify all the areas and eligibility requirements that the applicants must have. It's the reason why this is transparent also is because this program follows a centralized application mechanism. where all the proposal must be are submitted in March every year. Maybe if you can change slide, which I'm still seeing. And yes, this one. And applications must be submitted by the PI, the principal investigator, through the system of the Natural Science Foundation. But it's important to say that the PI must work in an institution in China, which must be also registered on this system. And it is very important to note that all of these institutions need to register on the NSFC website. Because otherwise any of its employees cannot be are not able to apply to any of these programs. Next slide, please. The evaluation process is very standardized, and there is also a possibility to ask for a re-examination of rejected proposals. And evaluation criteria are also pretty transparent. The chart shows just the evolution of the increase in the applications received by the Natural Science Foundation, the Natural Science Fund in blue here, and then on top of a bit more than 40,000 projects granted last year. A total of 25 billion Chinese renminbi were granted last year. Next slide, please. The Natural Science Fund is divided into different programs. Most of them are directed to mainland China, to actors based in mainland China. So this means that the China-based affiliates of European research institutes based in China, as well as European researchers working in China, can apply as PIs. There are a total of 14 of these programs, but I'm only going to introduce very quickly the main ones, because there is a good record of international researchers being granted these programs. First one is the general program. This supports researchers to conduct exploratory research on open topics within priority areas that are specified every year in the annual guidelines published in December. We see that 18,000 projects were assigned last year for an average, receiving an average of almost 600,000 renminbi per project. We see many international universities or institutes based in China also were granted some of these projects. For instance, Institut Pasteur, but also Xi'an Liverpool University, New York University, Duke, Kunshan University, and Nottingham Nimbo. And at the same time, also foreign PIs, 76 foreign PIs working in Chinese institutions were granted this project. But again, international foreign PIs need to be employed in one institution, which is a Chinese institution, which is registered on the system. Otherwise, they're not, they cannot do that. Another program is the Young Scientist Fund, which is basically the same as the general program, but targets young PIs. So scientists below 35 years in case of male scientists, or 40 years in case of female scientists. Funding for these programs, for this typology of programs, is generally lower. We are around 230,000 renminbi per project. Again, there is evidence of international China-based international universities such as Xi'an Liverpool and Nottingham Nimbo obtaining these programs, as well as foreign PIs working in Chinese institutions. Next slide, please. Sorry. These are two other categories of programs under the Natural Science Fund, which are pretty larger projects, and these are generally harder to obtain because funding is much higher. But in any case, we have still identified some instances of international participations. We have Institut Pasteur or Xi'an Liverpool University getting the key program, or also New York University in Shanghai, or the Hong Kong Polytechnic University obtaining the major research plan, and together with some foreign PIs working in these Chinese institutions. I'm trying to go a bit faster. Next slide, please. In addition to programs which are directed to Chinese actors, there are also one typology program which targets international cooperation. In particular, there is this research fellowship for international young scientists, which support any international scientist with PhD and below 40 years to come to China and conduct basing research within an institution here. Of course, a prior agreement with the Chinese institution is required. Funding ranges from 200 to 400,000 RMB per project for lasting 1 or 2 years, and calls for this program are published every year in December. And the nice thing about this is that this program is that all related information are published in English, as you can see in the links over there. Next slide, please. There are also other programs targeting international cooperation. So key international joint research projects support China-based institutions and scientists to conduct innovative research in priority areas and in cooperation with international institutions based abroad. So there are two opportunities here for EU entities based in the EU to be in a consortium with a Chinese entity here, or European institutes with a legal presence in China can apply as Chinese parts. The only problem is that these tend to be the applicant tend to be very, very senior, as shown by the fact that only that last year only Institute Pasteur was awarded one of these programs. There is another category program which is called Joint Research and Exchange Programs, which are programs under bilateral or multilateral framework agreement between the Natural Science Foundation and other partner institutions, and they support the mobility of Chinese scientists to go to the partner countries and conduct research there. And the Natural Science Foundation has different agreements, including with 17 EU member states, or CERN, or European Research Council, and so on. Next slide, please. In the guide that I mentioned before, we include some recommendations that are related specifically to this Natural Science Fund. For instance, on how to write research topics, how to choose research topics, how to fill application forms, so in order to avoid any errors that might compromise the success of the proposal, or in terms of writing style. Next slide, please. Going to the national key programs. These are next again, please. These are this is a new category of programs which incorporated previously existing programs, as I mentioned before, and they support research and development in areas of social welfare and people's livelihood. So agriculture, we also have food technology, solid waste, but we also have sports, or health, and so on, soil pollution, and so on. The main characteristic is that they feature several very well-defined targets and deliverables that must be achieved within a period of 3 to 5 years. And this reflects a top-down design which integrates basic research, technology application, and demonstration and commercialization. Another very important characteristic is that these programs must have a diversified sources of funding. Central government funding usually is only limited, does not exceed 1/3 of the total budget, with the rest being provided by the consortium or other actors. And it's usually nice if the proposal includes funding from local governments. Next slide, please. We are talking about very large projects, an average of 22 million per project. Over 50 billion RMB were allocated in the past 2 years for over 2,000 projects. We see in this chart here that the winners of these projects are very diversified, mostly universities and research structures, but we also have enterprises, state-owned enterprises, and hospitals. Next slide, please. There are a total of 65 of these national key programs. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. And each of these NKPs funds several projects and activities every year. Project guidelines are published every year on an annual basis, And the cycle actually is very transparent and cyclic. It starts with the publication of a call for comment on a draft tender around 2 months before being officially published. And then when they publish the tender, there will also be the list of the experts who have drafted the guidelines. Then there is the deadline for submitting application is usually 4 to 5 weeks after the publication date. Then there are 2 rounds of evaluation, and the second of which is an interview in Chinese with an evaluation committee. And then the winners will be selected by the committee, and the final list of winners actually will be published, will be disclosed on this national science and technology server platform that it's listed here in this slide, together with all the all relevant information of any of these stages. Next slide, please. There are eligibility requirements, mainly generally include being registered in mainland China for around 1 year before the application, and then there is a limit on the number of applications that can be submitted. And one very important thing is that the team and the PI must have very strong capacities for R&D. This means that there should be good for instance, laboratory facilities, or also renowned profiles, such as winners of 10,000 plan, and have generally higher chances of success. There are also other more specific requirements depending on specific programs. These depend on the NKP's field or direction, whether it's more commercialization oriented or basic research oriented, or activities, or also depending on activities like some programs involving pathogenic resources might involve some approval or licenses. Next slide, please. The reason I chose to focus on this program today is because this legal framework explicitly encourages different forms of international participation, specifically affiliates of overseas research institutions, universities, and enterprise registered in mainland China to be a consortium leader or just to participate in consortium. Then it also encourages foreign experts to be PIs, to be the main coordinators, or also to be the coordinators of specific sub projects, like specific topics, activities within the project, and then also foreign experts to be invited into evaluation commissions. In reality, the situation is still below the expectations. We see that only a very small part, 22 out of over 2,000 projects, were led by an international entity. The thing is that we expect this figure to be higher when we consider larger consortiums, but we cannot, unfortunately, we don't have this data because this is not released. And then there are also only 2 cases of projects where the general leader, the coordinator, was a foreigner. Both cases were Italians, actually, representing a consortium led by a private Chinese firm. And in both cases, this leader were awarded the 1,000 talents plan. Next slide, please. This is, I'm not going too much in detail into this. This is just to show that some national key projects are more open and accessible than others. For instance, we made an analysis of the relationship between how open some projects appeared in the tender document and how they were in reality. For instance, some tender documents included some technical barriers, or maybe the evaluation committee was composed mainly by state experts belonging to state or military bodies, and so on. So the reason I include this chart is just to show that national key projects are very different from each other, and it is very important to make an extensive research and identify the right NKP before actually starting to even think into an application. There are also some specific national key projects. Next slide, please. Specifically targeting international cooperation, specifically established under bilateral or multilateral agreements. These target foreign governments, international organizations, or other schemes. And these kind of programs include the calls from the Chinese side and of the EU-China co-funding mechanism, but there are also other calls with 13 European member states, which are listed here. And then there are also other calls targeting international projects and organizations. Most important, the ITER, but also other international projects. And the rules for participations are based on these bilateral agreements. I'm going a bit fast, but all this information can be are made available, and also can be found. You can find them in the guide that we mentioned before. Next slide, please. We also have some recommendations. I mentioned there are different national key projects. They differ in terms of accessibility, so it's important to identify the right one, as together with the right partner and consortium. It's important to diversify funds. Central government funding is usually never exceeds 1/3, and then if you can include funding from local governments or other actors, it will increase your chances of success. And then the research subject should be very important. Of course, tender guidelines usually tend to present very to specify in detail what are the specific deliverables that they want, the technologies that they want to develop. But still, you have to keep in mind that these programs usually follow industrial targets. So you must have a very broad knowledge of these issues. And then you have to be proactive. We mentioned that there are calls for comments, and it's important to provide feedback just to show that you are participating, you are taking an active role into this. Next slide, please. Next slide. There are some conclusions that we can draw from this study that we made, is that not all these programs are open to the same degree as we mentioned. The other thing is that all these funding programs within the funding system in China tends to be closely linked to each other. This means that often if you are successful in one of these programs, you will likely get more opportunities when applying to another program in the future. And another very interesting thing is that we have identified very high percentage of winners of these programs, which were located into national high-tech zones or national sustainable development zones, or this kind of zones. So if you are considering to enter, to open an R&D facility in China, you might consider these special zones because you will get strong government support. There are also a lot of improvements taking place. At the very beginning of the reform, the system was not very transparent, but now it's becoming very transparent, I have to say. And then in terms of international participation, we have identified more opportunities from more cases from academic stakeholders rather than the East industry. The reason is not clear, but many people suggest that maybe academic cooperation is less, let's say, political than the industry one. We have also identified more opportunities at the individual level rather than the organizational level. This is in line also with most Chinese policies that are published recently, emphasizing the role of foreign talents, foreign experts, rather than foreign organizations. And then we also have identified more cases of international participation at the local level rather than national level. This is because local level, you usually tend to have a closer relation with the local authorities rather than national ones, which are more impersonal. Local authorities tend to know you better than national ones, so they can trust you more. They know the benefits that you bring. So for this reason, many people we have talked with, they're still focusing on local level projects. In conclusion, I have to say, I think that concrete opportunities exist, but there is very low awareness as the system is complicated and changing very rapidly. I have one very last slide. Maybe if you can change it, please, the images. The recommendations that I will have is to always try to identify the most easily accessible program, as we mentioned before. You can eventually start from the local level, which is easier because success at the local level may be used to show like previous successful experience to national level authorities. then you have to keep in mind that all this program funding here follows strategic industrial policy goals rather than being purely market driven. So you should be very familiar with the Chinese development needs and goals. And for instance, also what are the main actors involved into this, into one specific industry. For instance, whether in this industry there is a tendency to pursue cross-disciplinary research rather than industry, education, or research cooperation, and this kind of cooperation. Then the other thing is that there is still a strong focus on hardware, meaning that in industrial and technology development is still seen as technical task of developing new equipment, products, or facilities. So that the proposed deliverables of one proposal should highlight these aspects. Another thing is that you have to be proactive and you have to show real commitment to the local and national innovation ecosystem. This was particularly raised by some European multinational companies we have consulted. They say that Europeans usually tend to complain about obtaining funding, how difficult it is, but at the same time they do not show real commitment in pushing forward these Chinese national innovation needs. So for instance, a lot of people suggested to invest more in partnership with local actors or establishing postdoc workstations or mobility schemes or scholarships in one facility. Then of course you have to dialogue with authorities, and this is particularly the case for enterprises because we mentioned that sometimes in some programs the evaluation committees tend to be formed by experts from state or state-owned enterprises or military bodies, which often have a very low understanding and awareness of what is the role of a multinational company, what does working in multinational companies mean. So you have to dialogue with them, you have to invite them to your facilities, and you have to take part in calls for comments, seminars, conferences, and so on. And then very last, of course, this system is very complicated. It takes a lot of time and efforts and resources to understand the system until you can actually be successful. This would be all. Next slide, please. Of course, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Sorry if I spoke too fast, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, even here or by email. And this will be all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessio, for this very complete presentation of funding programs in China concerning research and innovation. We have a few minutes for questions, so I have some here that have already been posted, but please feel free to write your questions now if you want to be answered on the spot. Otherwise, of course, you can always contact us for any questions you might have, and we will come back to you with the specific replies at a later time. Here you can find our contacts in as ENRICH in China, both the website address, email addresses, as well as our contact details both in China, Beijing, Chengdu, and Brussels. And of course, you can also follow us through the social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. We are also there. Concerning the questions now, we have one question addressed to Alessio and has to do with, could you please highlight the key advantages? Sorry, but it moves just a second. Can you highlight the key advantages of European researchers to conduct research in China? What are the what would be the benefit for European researchers to conduct research in China? Alessio, if you can answer this, and maybe if I group them together,
yes,
there is another question. There is another question that deals with companies in Chinese programs. I think that this has not been highlighted enough, in the sense that there's a tendency towards researchers entering into these Chinese programs. And if you could specify a bit more, what is the situation with innovative companies wanting to enter these Chinese programs?
Yes, I think the advantages of European actors are mainly related to maybe maybe better operational management capabilities, and this is maybe why there is a stronger, there is larger evidence of success at the individual level rather than the organizational level. Because while at the organization level, to be honest, we also many people we have consulted, they say that evaluation experts, authorities here tend to not see like a huge gap anymore as it was, for instance, until some time ago. So I don't know if this answers your question. The other thing about enterprises, funding, let's say that in most cases, enterprises do not really have benefits. With this, I mean that very often one of the conditions according to which enterprises can join to this program is that they provide extra funding. So that they actually don't receive funding, and they provide it themselves. And the only benefit that they have would be IPs developed together with the Chinese counterparts. And what I think is the most important is the credit, is the image, the prestige that one person, that one entity achieves. And this also applies to researchers here. If you have previous successful if you have successfully implemented some projects here, you have them on your curriculum. When you go, when you need extra funding in the future, or anything you need in the future, you will be looked, let's say, differently, with more regards. Yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you, Alessio. A couple of more questions to you, and one addressed to SPI. The two for you I have to do, first of all, do all consortium partners need to be based in China, or one of them and then others can be based in Europe? The second question, again to Alessio, for the funding opportunities at the local government level, how accessible is this information online? And are they published in Chinese only, or are they, how accessible in general is this information for funding at the local level? And then at SPI, just to close, and this for SPI, and I think for the consortium, for the Enriching China as a whole, if UK entities can participate in the visits, missions, etc., that we are organizing. Alessio, first you can answer, and then SPI can answer as well.
Yes, I will start with the second question. The question was for the local level, but actually I will also take this opportunity to mention something for the national level. Information generally tend to be very fragmented, and mostly in Chinese. There are only very few exceptions in which you can find English information in English. Of course, we have, going back to the local level, we have to make distinctions between what province or what city we're talking about. If we're talking about areas such as Shanghai, or Zhangjiang in Shanghai, or Zhongguancun, or even Wuhan, maybe it's much easier, much more likely that you will find information in English, while in other areas might be more difficult. In terms of the first question, if the consortium participant must be based in China or in the EU, it depends. Because I hope it was clear from this presentation that there exist different typologies of programs. Most of the programs are targeted to China-based actors, while other programs are target international cooperation. In the first case, then yes, you should be registered, you should be established here in China. In the second case, you can, you don't necessarily need to be established here. But in that case, of course, you will only be a consortium member. You cannot apply, of course, as PI. yes, this would be my answer.
Many thanks. Andre, Sara, if you can answer it for UK. I mean, I could answer as well, but maybe since you are coordinating the project, maybe you can answer on our behalf.
Yes. Thank you, Dimitris. Thank you also for the question. So basically, UK organizations, they are also eligible to participate in all activities and also to benefit from all the services that ENRICH in China provides.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have more time. There has been another question just to mention that if these handouts are available and to be distributed, of course, I think they are. I don't see any problem with that. So feel free to consult them and maybe even distribute them further, these presentations. This is all from our side. I would like to thank, first of all, the speakers for their excellent presentations, Sara, Andre, and Alessio. I would also like to thank SPI for being great hosts of this webinar and providing all the necessary tools to organize this. And last but not least, I would like to thank all the participants, the people that attended this webinar. I sincerely hope that you found it useful for your future endeavors in China. As already mentioned, please follow us, keep an eye on what we're doing, both through our website and our social media. Because there are a lot of activities that are going to be organized in the near and the not so near future. So please be alert, and we would be very happy to welcome you in other activities that we're going to organize as ENRICH in China. Thank you all, and have a very nice day for those of you in Europe, and a very nice evening for those of you in China. Bye now.